Recently, a customer reached out to us and asked us about a new open box Steelcase Leap V2 on eBay that was selling for $299.11. Now these chairs brand new retail on Steelcase.com for over $1,000. So we thought, wow, is this deal maybe too good to be true? So we decided, let's buy one and find out for ourselves. All right guys, so we got our chair here. We're ready to start opening it. Now remember, this is what they call New-Open Box, and eBay has actual definitions for what they deem to be new open box. And specifically when we talk about what's new open box, they say that this product is in an excellent, like new condition. Generally they're used for, I guess, demo purposes, showroom stuff. So that's sort of the expectation here when we open this up and see what's in here. They did mention that it's in different packaging, or it can be in different packaging. So that's not an issue. So as you can tell here, this is in the packaging from the company that supplied the product. What do we get? We get a base, we've got a cylinder here, and then we've got the rest of the chair. One thing I noticed right away as I'm opening this up and I'm pulling the bag off, it really smells like spray paint. Yeah, there definitely is like a smell of some type of spray paint, or, you know, if this chair is refurbished, a lot of times what people do is they'll remove the oxidation too with some of this black plastic with some type of a product too. It could be that, but honestly I think it's spray paint. I'm getting the impression though that this might not be a new open box chair, just from some things I'm seeing, which we'll talk about here shortly. Let's take a look and see what the cylinder is that they sent us. So one of the things that I noticed right away with this chair, when I pull out the cylinder here, this cylinder is a top activated cylinder. So the way that the chairs work with the Leap V2s, there was the first generation of chairs, which was about 2 years that they were out, and it was a top activated cylinder. They eventually moved into what is called a side activated cylinder, and this would be different. This is also manufactured by a company called Suspa, which isn't manufacturing cylinders any longer for Steelcase. Well, now we've got this together, I'm gonna actually bring in another chair that is a chair that we bought from Steelcase now. It's about 1.5 years old. That would be what we would deem to be new or open box, because it is a demo item that we use for videos here in the office. So we're gonna slide the table out of the way. So we've got these two chairs now next to each other. This is the Steelcase Leap that we bought from Steelcase. It's been in our office again for about 1.5 years, maybe as much as 2 years. But this chair has really just been used for pictures and videos, and something that we're gonna use now to compare to the eBay Leap V2, which is a new open box Leap V2. Now, at first glance, we're gonna just kind of look at the chair as a whole and just see what the major differences are. We can tell here, just at first glance, there's really not a ton of difference. There's maybe some of the ways that this is upholstered maybe looks a little bit different, but honestly, you really can't tell at first glance that they're any different. The upholstery looks pretty similar. Now, when we look here though, we can look at the arms. You can see this arm actually has some type of vinyl covering on it, which you can actually see how it's pulled under, and it's probably stapled in there. I can't really see. We'll pull these off here in a little bit to look, but this is a single molded piece that they're using at Steelcase. So when you get it from Steelcase, it definitely doesn't have a covering on it. Looking at the back, again, now this is definitely a clear difference. You can just see here, this is sort of, something's in here, whether it's glue or something. It's clearly been adhered to another piece of upholstery. You can kind of hear the difference, kind of feel the difference too. There's something behind here, and we'll take this apart and take a closer look, but overall, this is definitely not original from the factory when we compare these two. I just want to take this chair and see if it moves up and down with that cylinder in there. And it does. So the original cylinder on here, that's good quality. So it still works just fine, even though it's older. It's gonna work very similar to this one. All right, so we're gonna start taking these things off the chair to start comparing the different components and just seeing what we find. So we'll pull the back pads off. Once I got the back pad and the seat pad off the eBay chair, you can tell if you look here down in the mechanism, you can tell this is all spray painted throughout the bottom here. So this is definitely, as I expected, a painted chair. So this is from Steelcase. You can see this is a single piece molded into the plastic. This is an original arm pad from a Steelcase chair. However, it is vinyl wrapped and stapled, which is definitely not how Steelcase does it at the factory. We're gonna find out what's underneath here and see what this original pad looks like. But I think it's pretty clear that this is a refurbished model. This is new. So when you pull off this vinyl, what is happening is there was a version before this single molded piece where they have the plastic mold inside, the PU pad, and they actually had like a rubber sock that went over their pads. And this is from the first version of the V2s. This is like late 2006, 7, and 8 is when they did this. And then they eventually switched over to this different version, this better version on the chairs that were 2008 through current day. So what it looks like was done was the old rubber kind of sock was pulled off of this one because they sort of get beat up and they don't look very good. And they replaced it with sort of a vinyl upholstery, which is not how it was done at the factory. So the next thing we're going to take a closer look at is the actual seats themselves. You can tell here, this is what the plastic should look like, right? There's clearly just, it's plastic. This is a plastic that's been obviously spray painted over the top. It's got a different sheen to it. It's got a different texture to it. And you can even see the spray paint on the plastics here as well. So we're going to pull off this shell, and then we're going to take a closer look at the actual upholstery work to see if that is, in fact, the same from a like-new chair. You can see the spray paint here that came through. You can see it all around here. Okay, well, another thing here that we're gonna see is that this part here, this plastic part that ties in with the mechanism, has been stapled to the seat. This is not how this would normally be. The way that it comes from the factory is this is free floating. This doesn't get stapled down. And we're actually gonna see that there is a lot of staples here. This is the look of something that's been refurbished. This is common when chairs are refurbished. Okay, so we take off the shell, like I had mentioned. This is not something that gets stapled down, and you can tell just when they come from Steelcase directly, they use a different system where they're cinching this down and then they're kind of tacking staples to hold it in place. It's quite a bit different than what you see with refurbished chairs. There really isn't a ton to see. I just wanted to kind of show you what this looked like underneath. You can tell this foam, this is definitely new foam. Obviously, the pad looks quite a bit different just because it's older. And again, this chair that we're estimating is probably from the first iteration of these chairs, and we'll find out later when we take a look at the actual manufacturer date on the frame, but you know, this is definitely not the same as this is. So that's exactly what's happening here. You can see this is just a little bit of this Dacron over the top of the original pad, and it looks like the original pad, this again is one of the older versions of these pads because they had this same thing, this light foam over the top. They eventually switched on these chairs, so this is what the older V2s look like with this over the top of the original pad. They eventually switched to just having this light Dacron over the actual molded pad in there. All right, the last thing we're going to compare here are the backs. Now you can tell that they're clearly different just at first glance. You can see there's staples like there was in the seat because this is definitely a refurbished chair. There's some staples here where they're tacking it, but again, they're cinching this with the drawstring. Now, everything is nice and clean, well put together here. When I look at the chair from eBay, it appears that there's another layer of upholstery because there's an original upholstery in here. And that's why it felt the way it did when you sort of tap this. And the reason for this crease right here is likely some type of glue that they're using to tack this upholstery onto the original upholstery. But right away, we know that this is definitely refurbished, and it's well established now that this is not a new open box by the definition of eBay. And as expected, you can see this is what we're talking about. This is the glue that's being used to hold this to this original upholstery, and that's why that back feels funny, because it's not the way that this should be done. If this is coming from the factory, you can see this is an original back with new upholstery over the top of it. All right, I think it's pretty clear after we compared this to the chair that we had in our showroom from Steelcase, it's quite a bit different, and I think this is probably closer to a refurbished than it is a new open box. But the last thing we gotta look at is the manufacture date on the core chair, which is on the bottom side of the frame. Let's see what we find out. And sure enough, as I expected, this thing is one of the first versions of the Leap V2. It is May 31st, 2007 for a manufactured date.